Hi, hello everyone. It is Brianna and welcome to Brianna's Bookshelf. So today I'm going to be talking about spring recommendations, books that I think are perfect for reading in the springtime. Spring is well underway here where I live. It is mid-April and the sun is shining outside. I'm wearing a tank top. I'm feeling very happy to be seeing the sunshine and having somewhat warmer weather. So I wanted to celebrate that by reading some springier books. I'm definitely trying to kind of shift my own April TBR towards books that give me these like sunny spring vibes, and I thought that some of you may be doing the same, so I wanted to give you some recommendations of books that I think are perfect to read in the springtime. So here we go with our 10 recommendations. We've got a pretty good mix of genres today. We have some romance, horror, fantasy, mystery. We've really got it all going on for spring. So my first recommendation for you is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. Now, please excuse the fact this has no dust jacket. I never read this as a kid, but I hadn't heard of the book in the movie. I know this is like a childhood classic for some. If you have not read it, this is just what it sounds like. The Last Unicorn. We're following this unicorn. She is living her life in her forest where it's just perfect spring vibes. The flowers are blooming, the sun is shining. Her and the other animals of the forest are one. They are like living in harmony together. But she starts to think about whether there are other unicorns, and she hears rumors from people in the forest that there are no other unicorns but her left. So she sets out on a quest and joins up with some humans to try to figure out if there are any more unicorns left in the world. This is definitely more of a kid's book, I would say. But I would say that it is worth reading as an adult. I just read it recently and I did enjoy it. I had a fun time, but I do feel like it has the perfect like spring fairy tale vibes. So I would definitely recommend it. And my copy still has my bookmark in it, which is also a good spring vibe. Next up, a little mystery recommendation. We have Shady Hollow by Juneau Black. This is the first book in the Shady Hollow series, and this is a series of cozy mysteries set in a forest with woodland creatures who have like human qualities. They could speak to each other, and they live in this society made up of animals and in their little town in their forest. So in this first book, we're following our main character, Vera, who is a fox, and she is the reporter in this town. And she hears about a suspicious death of someone in town, and she starts to think that maybe there might be more to this accidental death than was previously mentioned. She thinks that this might be a murder, and she starts poking around with the help of some of her fellow townspeople or town animals. They start to delve deeper into this mystery and get into all kinds of shenanigans together. I would say this is a really good one for if you are interested in trying cozy mysteries. I'm not big into the genre as a whole, but I did really enjoy this, and I would love to continue this series. I believe that each of the books in this series kind of takes place during a different season, and this one definitely has that kind of spring vibe to me. And I mean, what could be more spring, like fairy tale vibes, than animals talking in a forest and going on the hunt for a murderer together. Coming up, we've got a horror recommendation, and this is A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock. I just read this one last year, I think in like the fall time, and I absolutely loved this. I gave this 5 stars, and I had a great time reading it in the fall, but I actually feel like this would be a better book for reading during the springtime. So this is like the perfect spring horror in my opinion. So this is like a historical horror. It takes place in kind of like a Victorian England period, and we're following these two men, Simon and Gregor, who live together in a botanical garden. So they live inside of like one of those big glass greenhouse type of situations, like a huge one that's like was really renowned on this big property, but they don't live in the house at all. They just live in this greenhouse area, and it's like massive and full of all these tropical plants. And one of the men, he is really into plants, and he really wants to impress the horticultural society and like come up with new findings about these plants and kind of get his fame that way. And his partner, he is really interested in actually taxidermy, and he does all these taxidermy projects in the basement. So already giving a little bit of spooky vibes. But one day they discover a particular fungus that is giving signs of life. So kind of signs of consciousness, of intelligence. And this is a Frankenstein retelling. So they kind of try to use this fungus to make something come to life. And there's so many descriptions of plants. It's so like lush and misty and like wet and boggy, and descriptions of all these different plants and flowers. I think that this is such a good read for spring, and it's also really creepy but has really good atmosphere. Next up, I have kind of a 2-in-1 here. We have the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels and the League of Gentlewomen Witches, both by India Holton. And these are 2 books in a interconnected standalone series. I don't know why my books are different heights. I know that's really annoying. I think I got this one new and this one used, so I don't know why that's the case. But anyhow, I love these books. This is actually a trilogy. There's one other book that I have not read yet. I think it's like the Society of Treason and Tea or something like that. So it's kind of giving like, I don't know, spies or something. But in the first 2 books, we are focusing on pirates in this one and then witches in this one. We also have some of the pirates making an appearance in the second book as well, because we're following just kind of this Victorian England society where we have this magic that can make houses fly or do more subtle things. So the pirates use this magic, to fly their houses around instead of ships and go and rob people of their jewels, commit all sorts of crimes, fight each other constantly. They are big characters and they are freaking hilarious. And the witches are a little more subtle. They don't fly. They don't want anyone to know they do magic because witchcraft is actually still a crime in this society. So yeah, they use their magic in a little more subtle ways, and they think that they're a little classier, a little better than the pirates. But both of these are actually romance books. So in this book, we're following our main character, Cecilia Bassingthwaighte, and she is one of the pirates, and we are following her journey and her romance, and she is so kick-ass and so cool. Like, I really look up to Cecilia. I think she's awesome, and I gave this book 5 stars. I'm obsessed with it. And this one I just finished reading actually really recently. And in this book, we're following Charlotte Pettifer, who is kind of the heir to the Wiccan League, to the witches. And she is really cool as well. She's definitely a badass, but she is a little more timid to start with, and she has to come out of her shell a little bit thanks to the help of some folks that she gets into some shenanigans with along her way. So these are so fun. This one was 4 stars, but I still absolutely loved it. Just not quite as good as this one. I'm definitely going to continue this series, and I would really read anything that India Holton puts out. It's very wholesome. There is a little bit of spice in these books, but it's not super explicit or anything. It's definitely more of like a wholesome romance vibe and just like silly, goofy time. These books will definitely put a smile on your face and have you giggling and kicking your feet. Next up, we have more of a contemporary fiction pick. This is Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. I absolutely love Sally Rooney. Now, why do I recommend this one particularly for spring? Honestly, I'm not too sure. I feel like the cover is really giving spring to me. Like, it has this beautiful blue sky cover, but I think there's so many beautiful quotes in this book that will really kind of like inspire you, and that's always kind of the feeling that I want to have in springtime, so that's why I recommend this one. And in this book, we are following our main character, Alice, and she is just kind of going through her life, and she has a best friend, and both her and her best friend are kind of like getting into these different relationships. They live in different cities, but they're talking to each other over the phone, texting about their lives, and just kind of getting into messy situations. That is kind of like the classic Sally Rooney style to me, of like, we're really just like looking at a slice of life of someone living out their life in this messy sort of way. But her books are so authentic and real. They really just get me every single time and like make me feel so much. And honestly, they always feel really relatable and just have the most phenomenal quotes that inspire me. So a quote I want to read to y'all from this one to maybe help you be inspired to pick this up. This is one of my favorite quotes from this book that I have tabbed. At times, I think of human relationships as something soft, like sand or water, and by pouring them into particular vessels, we give them shape. But what would it be like to form a relationship with no preordained shape of any kind? Just to pour the water out and let it fall. I suppose it would take no shape and run off in all directions. So just a little taste of the beautiful writing that you will find in this book. I definitely recommend reading this one. Okay, so now going into some fantasy, I would recommend Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. And this is just a little standalone fantasy book by T. Kingfisher. In this book, we follow a girl named Mara who is born to this royal family, but she is the youngest daughter, so she does not have to have like the usual fate of a princess to be married off. However, her older sister does get married to this like cruel prince, and Mara is very worried about the fate of her sister, so she decides to go on a quest to try to rescue her sister from this marriage. And she teams up with some crazy people along the way, like she meets up with a knight, or I think he's like an ex-knight, and a fairy godmother, and I believe like a graveyard witch. So we have just the like most ridiculous cast of characters, and they're going on this journey to save her sister. So definitely a journey story if you like those. There is a lot of kind of like darker fantasy elements with like that graveyard witch situation, and I think that this could actually be good for either spring or fall. For me, there is a lot of like kind of plant magic type of stuff happening in this book, and a lot of like journeying through the forest, which I think for me is what really brings spring to mind. But this would be fun for fall as well, but you should definitely read this no matter what season. I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. I really need to do a reread because it is just a fantastic journey story if you are into that. So now we have a weird one, and definitely a dark one. If you are in your dark spring era, you should read Lapvona by Ottessa Moshfegh. So this cover to me just screams like a dark spring vibe. Like, hello, the lamb ready for slaughter. Like, it's giving Easter, it's giving like a weird sort of religious occult vibe, and that's definitely what you're gonna get from this book. So in this one, we are following basically this like medieval village, which is super dark and messed up, and like has a lot of like natural disasters happening to them, a lot of sickness, just a lot of cruelty in their society. And we're specifically following one little boy named Merrick, who, yeah, he just has a pretty shitty life, to be honest. He's got a pretty rough life, and we're just kind of following that, and he eventually gets kind of entangled in the life of the governor, who lives like in this hilltop mansion and who is extremely depraved and strange. And yes, he kind of gets involved in that world and goes to live with him. And I don't know how else to explain this book. It's just a really weird one. If you like creepy, if you are okay with gross things in your books, maybe a little bit of body horror, except I don't know that I would call this horror as a book, but there's definitely some gross parts of this book. But if that is something you're into, I definitely recommend this, and I feel a reread coming on for this book for me. I just love this book, and I don't know how to describe why, because the description sounds quite awful, but it's wonderful. It really is. Now we have Queen Mona Awad gracing this list. So Mona Awad is one of my favorite authors, and she writes kind of like girly pop horror, and this book, Rouge, is her latest release. I think it came out last year or the year before, and I love this, gave it 5 stars, and I was actually lucky enough to have Miss Mona sign this book for me, which was an incredible experience. It was so wonderful to meet her. But in this book, we are following our main character named Belle, and she is obsessed with beauty. So this is like a beauty horror story, the dark side of beauty culture. She is obsessed with skincare, trying to look perfect, doing all these 10-step skincare regimens to the point that it is a little bit crazy and bizarre. And she finds out that her mother has passed away, and when she goes to deal with this, she finds out that her mother was involved in this kind of med spa almost kind of situation, or like this place where they're doing these beauty regimens, and they try to get Belle involved as well. But this group is pretty creepy, and Belle is not too sure what to think about them because they act a little bit cult-like. And yeah, we just go from there, and it's a critique on all sorts of things. It's a retelling of Snow White, I think. Yeah, it's a retelling of Snow White. There's like a mirror that keeps popping up in this book. We have just like all sorts of really random things that pop up in this book, but I do feel like it's a really good one for spring because there's a lot of rose symbolism, so we're definitely talking about beauty, flowers blooming. There's also a lot of jellyfish symbolism in this book, which is kind of more so giving summer, but I feel like this is a good one to like read in the spring upcoming to summer, specifically because of the topics that it covers and those particular motifs that we see in this book. So my last book to recommend to you all for spring is When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill, and this one is totally a cover recommendation. I mean, this cover is just absolutely stunning. That is the reason that I got this book to start with. I was so obsessed with it. The flowers, the like lush jungleness of it, these like kind of sweet pea flowers, so gorgeous, perfect cover for spring. The story is also phenomenal though. So in this book we follow kind of an alternate world where there was this mass dragoning event in the 1950s where a ton of women all over the world suddenly turned into dragons and flew away and like caused havoc, or ate men before they flew away and like went who knows where. And we're following our main character Alex, and this is taking place like quite some time after that happens. And in this world they totally don't mention the mass dragoning, so people kind of know that that happened, especially if they can remember it, but if they were alive during that time, but it is very taboo to actually talk about it, and society as a whole like ignores it. You're not supposed to talk about the dragoning. It is like this very hush-hush topic. We don't want to talk about it kind of a thing. The main character Alex had an aunt who turned into a dragon, and people want to just pretend that her aunt never even existed because this is way too taboo of a topic to mention in public. And as we continue with this story, we have actually another dragon event happening. And so this story is really just talking about like feminism as a whole and kind of analyzing how society is uncomfortable with talking about women's issues, women's rage, how women are mistreated, how women's struggles get ignored or are treated as taboo and something that we shouldn't be talking about. I feel like this book is extremely relevant to the current time period. I don't think I need to say anything else. I think you probably understand like why I'm saying that. But I think now more than ever, we're seeing people not wanting to talk about women's health issues, any kind of things that have to do with women in politics or otherwise. So this is really an incredibly heartbreaking book, but also hopeful in the end. And I think it really applies well to our current age. So I would definitely recommend this. All right, everyone. So that is it for my 10 recommendations of books that I think that you should read for springtime. And if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.